You feel the first contraction before sunrise. There is no hospital. No doctor is coming. And if something goes wrong, there is no operating room anywhere on Earth. You are lying near a fading fire while the people around you begin to wake. One woman adds wood to the flames. Another warms water. An older relative watches your face, places a hand against your back, and waits. She has seen this before. For almost all of human history, this was childbirth. So, how did your ancestors survive it? The honest answer is uncomfortable. Many did not. Birth could kill a mother through severe bleeding, infection, seizures, or labor that continued because the baby could not pass through the pelvis. It could kill the baby through oxygen loss, injury, or complications no one could see. Ancient people had no antibiotics, no blood transfusions, and no safe surgery. Nature did not protect them simply because they lived closer to it. But humanity did not survive by leaving every laboring mother alone and hoping for the best. Your ancestors carried something more ancient than any hospital. They carried knowledge, they carried cooperation, and they brought both to the place of birth. Why did they need to? Human childbirth is unusually complicated. A newborn chimpanzee has generous room to pass through its mother's birth canal. A human baby does not. The baby's head is large, the shoulders are broad, and the space inside the human pelvis changes shape from top to bottom. The baby cannot simply move straight through. It usually has to rotate. Anthropologists Karen Rosenberg and Wenda Trevathan made this strange geometry central to the study of human birth. They showed that the baby's head enters the pelvis facing one direction, turns as it descends, and commonly emerges facing away from the mother. The shoulders must then turn as well. In plain English, birth is not just a squeeze, it is a twisting journey through a narrow, uneven tunnel. So what uniquely human problem does that create? Many other primates can reach down and guide their own newborn toward the front of the body. A human mother attempting the same movement could pull against the natural bend of the baby's body or interfere with the shoulders. Rosenberg and Trevathan argued that this helps explain why assistance at birth became so important in human evolution. The first piece of obstetric technology may not have been a tool at all. It may have been another person. Could cooperation itself have become part of your ancestors' answer to anatomy? For decades, this difficult birth was explained by something called the obstetrical dilemma. The idea was simple. Walking on two legs favored a pelvis shaped for efficient movement, while evolution of a larger brain produced babies with larger heads. The mother was trapped between the demands of walking and the demands of birth. That story contains part of the truth, but it is not the whole truth. Research by Jonathan Wells, Jeremy De Silva, and Jonathan Stock showed that pelvic shape also responds to nutrition, body size, climate, growth, and the conditions in which a mother develops. Other researchers, including Holly Dunsworth, emphasized the mother's metabolic limit, meaning the enormous amount of energy her body can supply near the end of pregnancy. Human birth was not created by one simple evolutionary trade-off. It emerged from several pressures acting together. The result, however, is clear. There is very little room for error. How old is this problem? In 2009, Timothy Weaver and Jean-Jacques Hublin digitally reconstructed a female Neanderthal pelvis found at Tabun Cave in Israel. Their model suggested that Neanderthal birth was about as tight as birth in modern humans, although the baby probably followed a somewhat different route through the canal. Long before cities, farms, or written medicine, members of the human family were already confronting dangerous births. What evidence did they leave behind? Frustratingly little. The bones of newborns are tiny and fragile. They decay easily, scatter easily, and are less likely to survive long enough for archaeologists to find them. A pelvis can reveal the boundaries of a birth canal, but it cannot preserve the hands that supported a mother, the plants placed beside her, or the advice whispered during a long night. Behavior rarely fossilizes. So, how can you recover it? So, anthropologists combine anatomy with observations across human societies. The pattern is remarkably consistent. Women tend to seek company during labor. Experienced attendants recognize changes in breathing, contractions, bleeding, and the position of the baby. They offer water, pressure, warmth, reassurance, and physical support. They do not need a written anatomy book to notice which actions repeatedly help and which signs predict danger. Could that knowledge accumulate for generations? It almost certainly could. What might that help have looked like? Imagine the scene again. You are giving birth in a hunter-gatherer camp thousands of years ago. The ground has been cleared. A hide or woven mat lies beneath you. You're not forced to remain flat on your back. You kneel, squat, sit, lean forward, or grip another person's arms, changing position as the pain moves through your body. Upright positions allow gravity to help, while movement can change the angles inside the pelvis. An older woman stays close. What can she do without instruments or written instructions? She cannot measure your blood pressure. She cannot hear a fetal heartbeat through a monitor. But she knows that fear can tighten the body and that calm attention matters. She has watched births that ended quickly and births that lasted through the night. She knows when to encourage movement, when to let you rest, and when the appearance of the baby's head means the next moments are critical. Is this a prehistoric midwife? Not in the modern license sense. There are no certificates and no formal clinic. Yet the role is recognizable. A person whose experience turns many individual births into shared cultural memory. Skills do not have to be perfect to change the odds. They only have to be better than facing the same danger alone. The mother is not the only person receiving help. Someone tends the fire. Someone brings water. Someone watches older children. Someone prepares food for the days after birth. If the mother is exhausted or injured, another person may hold, warm, and protect the newborn. Could this wider network matter as much as the attendant beside her? In many cases, it may have. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer Hrdy called attention to cooperative breeding, the human pattern in which mothers receive help raising children from fathers, grandparents, siblings, and other group members. Human babies are extraordinarily dependent. They cannot cling and travel as efficiently as many infant primates, and their growing brains demand enormous energy. A mother who survived labor still needed calories, rest, protection, and time. In other words, did surviving childbirth end when the baby arrived? Not even close. It became a group project. This cooperation also made knowledge portable. A useful birthing position could spread from one camp to another. A warning about prolonged bleeding could be remembered. A person who had delivered several babies could teach someone younger. Remedies that appeared helpful could be repeated, while obviously harmful practices might eventually be abandoned. But where did ancient knowledge reach its hard limits? Warm water could clean. It could not stop catastrophic internal bleeding. A skilled attendant might recognize obstructed labor, meaning the baby was trapped despite strong contractions. But recognition did not create a surgical solution. Plants could ease pain or have real chemical effects, yet their dose was uncertain and some were toxic. Hands could reposition some babies. They could not resolve every mismatch between a baby's body and the mother's pelvis. Does that sound like a lost age of perfect natural birth? This is where romantic versions of the past collapse. Ancient mothers were not stronger in some magical way. The people whose descendants are alive today were the survivors, and survival hides those who vanished. Every family line creates a powerful illusion. Because someone lived, the danger must have been manageable. Archaeology does not give the dead an equal voice. So why did enough people survive? Because most births, even without modern intervention, do not become fatal emergencies. Because human bodies possess powerful adaptations. Pelvic ligaments loosen, the bones of the baby's skull can mold slightly, contractions guide descent, and hormones coordinate labor and feeding. Because active daily life and varied birth positions could sometimes help. Because experienced hands recognized patterns. And because a mother was usually embedded in a social system prepared to support her before, during, and after birth. Was any single protection enough? No. Together, they shifted the odds. There is another counterintuitive twist. What if the same evolutionary changes that made birth dangerous also made cooperation more valuable? A large-brained baby created a difficult delivery and then required years of intensive care. That vulnerability rewarded groups that shared food, information, protection, and attention. The danger was not merely a flaw your ancestors endured, it may have strengthened the social behavior that made humans so unusual. What did your greatest weakness demand? Your greatest talent? Other people? What changed when hospitals arrived? They transformed the boundary between a difficult birth and a fatal one. Skilled clinicians can treat infection, replace lost blood, monitor distress, control seizures, and perform surgery when labor cannot safely continue. These are not unnecessary intrusions into a process that was once perfectly safe. They are answers to ancient problems that community care alone could never always solve. Yet, what older human need did modern medicine never erase? Rosenberg and Trevathan noted that emotional and social support still fits the evolutionary context of birth. A trained midwife, nurse, doctor, partner, or doula does more than stand in a room. Continuous support can help a laboring person feel safer, communicate, change position, and endure uncertainty. The equipment is modern. The presence is ancient. What is the real connection between a firelit camp and a delivery ward? Not the absence of danger, the refusal to face it alone. Your ancestors survived childbirth through biology, learned skill, flexible behavior, and a web of people who treated one mother's crisis as everyone's concern. Sometimes that web held, sometimes it broke. Modern care saves lives precisely because ancient survival was never guaranteed. So return to the fading fire before sunrise. The pain is still real. The risk is still real. But the older woman reaches for your hand, another person feeds the flames, and the entire camp quietly rearranges itself around the life trying to arrive. You feel the first contraction, and you are not alone.